Hello. And good morning. Uh, Welcome back to the kitchen. We are doing Shining. Good morning. Um, we are. I've. So I'm sure you're already. Oop, you're first. You are officially first, right at the beginning too. We don't have to wait an hour for Felix to get in here and claim first. I'm sure you're familiar with Congee. I've never even eaten Congee. Um, It also has a Chinese name that I cannot remember, but it's the same, basically the same dish. Um, so I'm going to make it. Now, it has to sit and simmer for a while. And in fact, it wasn't the thing that inspired me to make this today. Um, I was trying to figure out what I could do with this enormous piece of salmon, which is discounted. Got to use the whole thing, but it's way too much. Um, so part of that is going to be a topping for a breakfast congee, but then the rest of that has to be used somehow. So I'm going to be, while the congee is simmering, experimenting with preservation techniques. So none of them are going to be ready to taste test today. Some of them might not even work, but I will have to bring you guys back to see how they've worked. And I think Monday is the day for that because Tuesday is Valentine's Day, and I have a Valentine's Day special planned. If you're following the Twitter, you've already seen it, but I will now give you a preview for those who have not seen it. I found something for Valentine's Day. Stay tuned. And yes, yes, that's a heart. Um, so we're gonna have to sort of squeeze this in. I could make gravlax. I've made gravlax before. I want to try. I'm gonna have to look up the name. Also, welcome in, bookwoman. Um, Shiozaki, which is when we um, when we made Brock's jelly donuts. One of the things that I had wanted to do, and that was what inspired us to make our uh, Maltese salted tuna. One of the recommended fillings for onigiri is Japanese salted salmon, which is shiozake. I want to try making that. Now that I think might be the best use for something like this because this is not sashimi grade salmon. So there is a risk to using it in an uncooked form. Shiozake is cooked typically before eating. Um, I also want to try just a purely experimental one with it because I've had this little tail end from ages ago of a bag of curing salt. And what sets this apart is that it has salt, yes, but also sugar and sodium nitrate. Nitrate is a strong preservative. It also is what makes like your bacon retain its pink color, your corned beef be bright pink. Nitrates from smoke is what gives you that pink ring around smoked meats. So it could give us an interesting color in our salmon. Won't give us the smoke flavor. If we want the smoke flavor, I do have some liquid smoke that we could use. But, and it's because This thing's enormous. I'll have enough here to do multiple experiments with. In addition to having some now. Um, so stay tuned for all that nonsense. But step one, part one, is we're going to get the congee started. And I've never made congee. We're actually going to start over here on the stove. So I was doing some reading about it because I am unfamiliar with cooking it myself and actually with eating it. It's one of those things that's very simple, so it's not typically on restaurant menus because it's expected that you're just making it at home if you want it. And I don't live in the region where it would be something that you could get commonplace. So a little bit of an experimentation. And every recipe is, first of all, every recipe is different. Every recipe is slightly different. Some of them say, don't you dare use long grain rice. Some say long grain rice is the way to go. I've seen liquid to rice ratios everywhere from 7 to 1 to 20 to 1. The 20 to 1 apparently makes a soup. My experience with risotto, because that's basically the same concept here, is that we're it's the same general idea of risotto. You're cooking the rice so it expresses all of its starches into the water, and the starch forms a silky, creamy sauce around the very softened rice grains. This is supposed to go further. We're essentially overcooking the rice until it just turns to mush. It's a porridge. Whereas risotto, you're supposed to stop right at that point when the grains are still identifiable in there. And that's, risotto's a 5 to 1, and it's also must be short grained. So this is supposed to be a little bit mushier. So I think I'm gonna start with 8 to 1, and I think we're probably gonna make a big. It's gonna be quite a bit. I'm gonna make it basic. We're gonna make a pretty basic, simple one to start with. Let's come over here and get out a board. I should have examined my ginger before we started because there's fresh ginger supposed to go in this, and mine is a little dried up looking. But still looks good on the inside. Yeah, okay, it's fine on the inside. How's everyone's morning going? What are you having for breakfast? What are you putting on your congee? I am peeling this. I've in the past advocated for there's no need to peel your ginger, especially if you're going to grate it. Oatmeal. Sizan, welcome in. I already had my coffee for the morning. Uh, I'm not grating this, and the skin bits will be visible because the finished dish here is going to be extremely white because it's almost entirely rice. So I am peeling it this time. But I maintain that peeling your ginger is optional. The peel is entirely edible. Bagel and lox, crumpet and peanut butter. Those both sound like quality breakfast. I should try making crumpets. Mmm. Put that on the lox. Lox is uh, cured, like it's a Scandinavian style of curing salmon. Um, it's not smoked salmon. It's salt cured. Sometimes it's cold smoked. Um, and I think the stuff you got in the store is usually cold smoked because that helps it be shelf stable compared to just the uh, brine cured. And it's cut very thin, and it's popular as a bagel topping. You can get it in like bagel shop, coffee shop places. Um, we had a bagel shop here in town attached to a coffee shop. They were kind of a combo unit. It was a bagel company and a coffee company that opened a place together. And the only thing I liked there was their lox bagel. And then the bagel place closed. And now it's just the coffee place, and they've downsized the food menu. Um, so no reason for me to go there anymore. Um, I don't really like coffee shop coffee. Yes, cream cheese is very good. Not necessarily required, but goes well. Um, I'm doing not a julienne because I'm not doing it properly, but like a crude matchsticking of the ginger so that it has a lot of surface area. Because we want the ginger flavor, but I want pieces. It's also going to be in there a while. Um, Gonna have to pick up some more ginger. My ginger's getting real gnarly. The word lax, I believe, is just the Swedish word for salmon. And gravlax is literally grave salmon because it's no longer done this way, but it was traditionally buried um, for its preservation process, which is quite the thing. Um, I'm going to attempt to serve this for one. So we're going to just take I think a half cup might even be too much. Because this is really going to expand as it mushes down. Let's say a half cup is too much. Although we're going to keep the half cup measure out. I think I want oh yeah, this is just my standard jar of long grain rice. Let's grab a quarter cup. Oh, I got some rice on the floor. I'll have to sweep that up. And then an eighth. So 3/8 of a cup is what I'm going for. Because I think half's going to be too much, but I think a quarter is going to be not enough. And if I stick to my desired 8-to-1 ratio, that gives us a nice, round, even 3 cups of liquid. And this isn't, here's an interesting thing. For most rice dishes coming out of Eastern Asia, they insist on washing the rice. Now, that does give you the separated rice grains when you want a white rice just as rice. But if you follow the origins of that process, it stems back to cleaning the rice, like cleaning the dirt and bugs and grit and stuff that would get in rice. Our modern rice is super clean. It's machine clean, machine milled. So that's not necessary. So although all the recipes here say rinse your rice, they don't say wash your rice because they don't want to lose the starches this time. And since our rice is already clean, I'm not even going to bother. We're going to go right like we do with risotto. Oops. And pop it in there. Although, unlike a risotto, I'm not toasting it. I may have gotten too big of a pot, but whatever. Throw in our inch of ginger. And dashi granules. Dashi is a Japanese broth. We made it once from scratch here on the channel. It's usually made with, let's see what this one specifically is made with bonito. And no kelp. What's the kelp called? It's a teaspoon per cup of liquid for these dashi granules. So 3 teaspoons of dashi granules, and then 3 cups of water. And then this is going to bring to a simmer and simmer for at least a long time. We can always add more water to it or cook more water out of it as we go. Since the goal here is essentially to overcook the rice, to cook the rice until it turns to mush. We're aiming more for the consistency rather than a doneness. Kind of like when you're making oatmeal. And that is going to sit there and simmer while we think about our other element. Which is this, which as you can see is reduced. I couldn't resist it at that price, but it's too much for me to use. So, what to do, what to do. First of all, there's some loose scales in there. So I'm going to get this out of there, out of the packaging, and rinse it to get those loose fish scales off of it. Smells like salmon. This is one of those cases where I occasionally will see a big piece of salmon like this, and I know I'm not going to use the whole thing. I'm not feeding a big family, so the big chunk like this is too much. And if I'm getting it close to its end date, or sometimes right on its end date, I've got to figure out what the heck to do with all of this. Because I don't want it, a third of it and then throw it away. That would be a waste. So, in part, that's the experiment today. Much like with the tuna, and that one worked out, we're trying to see if we can hold on to a larger quantity of fish like this. Especially in today's market, in today's economy, when everything is more expensive and we just don't have, we just can't afford the leeway. We never should have been throwing food away, good, perfectly good food, but especially now. And this is farm salmon. Let's get him on his slab there. Uh, yes. Now, preserving meats is often a very laborious process. And especially something like fish tends to be delicate and spoil rather quickly. I could try salt packing this, and I think that would desiccate it the way it did the tuna, and we end up having this extremely salted fish for a long period of time. Some of the more edible options, like lox and gravlax, and apparently there's a Russian method that's very similar to lox and shirazake. These are all because it often revolves around salmon because in the old nature the salmon run up the streams and then you would get a big windfall of salmon. You get a big quantity of salmon all at once. And have to do something with it. We're going to dry this off. We don't want excess water. Let's see what I missed. Rice porridge, you don't think it was simmered nearly as long. Well, don't know what to tell you. But many of the methods that I've read about, first of all, they've had the salt quantities severely lowered from the traditional versions because the traditional versions were meant to be preserving the meat without refrigeration for quite some time. And modern recipes try to reduce the amount of salt because too much salt in your diet is unhealthy. But less salt means less preservation. It's a 100% a trade-off. Let's wash my hands real quick. I just did that, but that's going to happen a lot. Let's wash my hands real quick. I'm going to put the gentleman away so that I don't handle them with fishy hands. Gentlemen, away. Tiny whisk, away. Okay. Get, get stuff out of the way before I handle it with fishy hands. Oop. And get a spoon out to stir my rice. Step one. Grab a knife. Do I want that knife? I think I want the long knife. My longest knife for this. Step 1, grab a knife, grab your honing steel, take your knife, hone it. Coming up to an ad, so I should probably take my knives in for professional sharpening at some point. Okay. So I want a piece of this, a couple pieces of this for my congee. So we're going to start by really. And that's why you want to hone your knife. Fish skin tends to be a little bit on the tough side. And we've had in the past done this and fought through trying to fillet with, not this knife, I used my skinny knife for that. Take it off the skin. I'm just going to leave the skins on this time. So I'm only giving it pressure in one direction. I'm not sawing back and forth with this. I'm only giving it pressure when I'm pushing forward so that I don't. But then you really got to press down to get through the skin so that I'm not mangling the cut surface, even though this is a smooth knife. You should, for something like this, be using a razor sharp slicer. They are knives that are twice the length of this. The idea being that you can just draw it in one direction for one clean, long slice. A couple of scales on my thing here. Okay. Knife. I'm going to wash my hand again. If you are doing curing of your own fish, be confident that it is clean enough to eat raw, because most curing processes, they'll preserve it from spoilage, but they won't preserve it against the parasites that can be in fish. And that's the thing that cooking is so, like, the reason we have regulations around cooking fish, and there's always warnings on like sushi menus. That's the reason. You can treat it at home. If you put your fish in the freezer at least, or at most 0 Fahrenheit for 7 days, that's considered cold treated. If you've got something that'll go to -35, or it's -35 outside, which happens occasionally, that only needs a couple of hours to be considered cold treated. Sushi grade stuff is usually flash frozen to -35 at some point in its history. Okay. I want to marinate these little pieces, and then they're going to end up being pan fried for a topping. So these guys are not getting the preservation treatment. They're going in a plastic bag. Rinse my hands off in between every little thing here. They're going in a plastic bag with a few ingredients. I'm going to use my ABC sauce. This is the Indonesian ketchup. This is actually the brand that makes it too. They just didn't market this one with the Indonesian name. And I'm not measuring this out. We're just going to put some of that in there. It's like molasses mixed with soy sauce. So it's sweet and savory. But I want it to be a little bit more salty than that. So we're adding some regular soy sauce, which also will help dilute the thickness of the ABC sauce, the ABC ketchup. A dab of sesame oil for flavor. I'm having to sort of reach around my the rest of my fish here as I prep this thing. Already got sweetness in it. Here's a fun new ingredient that I'm going to try on this thing. Salsa matcha estilo diablo. Mashed devil sauce, I believe, something like that. This is, if you're familiar with Chinese chili oil, Chinese style chili oil, like a Szechuan style chili oil. That's what this is, except this is the Mexican version of it. This has 4 ingredients. The first ingredient is chile de árbol. The second ingredient is garlic. It's hot. This stuff has a spice to it. Also, it's full of seeds up to about the top of the label with just a little bit of oil floating on top. This is some intense stuff. I taste tested it. I cracked the seal and taste tested it. It's got good flavor. It's got like a fun smoky flavor to it. And the oil they use is corn oil, and it has toasted garlic in it. But yes, definitely has a spice to it. Let's have a taste. It's not completely blow your head off spicy, but it's definitely spicy, and it definitely sticks to your mouth and lingers. So we'll be using that, but sparingly. I do like the flavor. It tastes almost burnt a little bit. Maybe that's the wrong way to. Maybe that's the wrong way to describe it. But quite a spice to it. I quite like it. I found it at our local Mexican grocery. And when I bought it, the cashier said, "Oh, you like it hot, huh?" So it's the hot one, and I do quite like it. I respect it. Smoked paprika for color. No, actually, I don't want the smoky flavor. regular paprika for color. I specifically don't want the smoky flavor in this. Although there's going to be some red, plenty of red color coming out of that chili paste. And some garlic powder for garlickiness. And a dash of water to get this all dissolved together. And then that is going to marinate for about half the time of our congee. And then we will fry it up and it'll be a topping. And we will return to this. Now to make gravlax, I would probably cut a section about that big and then another one about the same width, sandwich them, salt them, season them, and then sandwich them together and press them. For shirazake, I'm supposed to cut approximately inch-wide slices. So I'm going to take those from this large end, and we can experiment down the way. If this works as well as I hope it does, because shirazake does not, it keeps for several days. But, okay, it cures for approximately 2 days. And then it keeps after that for several more days. Oh, there's a bone. But you can freeze it quite well. So if this works as well as I hope it does, I will keep an eye out for large pieces of fish like this at a discount, and then I can do this with them again, much like I've been keeping an eye out for tuna. Although I have not seen tuna in the discount bin lately, so we haven't been able to refresh my Maltese salted tuna. I also need to come up with better containers for storing some of these things. I've been repurposing standard storage containers, and I don't know that that is necessarily appropriate. So, let me grab this rainbow bottle, this rainbow skull bottle. A measuring cup, and a tray. You can get pushed to the top. Yeah, we'll work down here. So, one of the elements, and I didn't pick up sake for this, so I'm going to fake it by diluting some vodka. It will not make this alcoholic. We are deliberately going to be evaporating the liquid, the alcohol, out of this. But every single recipe I read had us adding alcohol. Not a ton, but some alcohol to our fish before we salt it. Specifically sake, which is around 15%. It's around a wine concentration. This stuff, this is vodka, this is a pretty nice vodka, is 40%. So we need to dilute it. For two reasons. One, I also don't want to use that much of my nice vodka on this. So if I want 15%, I need 3 parts vodka, no. 3.5 parts. 4 parts vodka to 6 parts water would get us to 16%. So 1 to 4. Oh, and I immediately spilled it. Wipe that up. We're not drinking the vodka. Purely used in cooking, and the alcohol content is going to be negligible when we're done, because we're drawing it back out when we salt this. This is supposed to, and I imagine this is, again, more tradition than anything, but this is supposed to eliminate any lingering fishiness. Sure smells like vodka. Put the skull away. The idea here is that the fishiness of fish will dissolve in the alcohol and then will get extracted and then evaporate when the alcohol evaporates. It also probably, again, as a traditional element, helps kill surface microbes and parasites for these cured things, because having looked through a number of salmon curing recipes, the Norwegians use aquavit, the Russians use vodka, the Japanese use sake. Everyone wants to add a little bit of alcohol to their fish before they dive in on curing it. And it's got to be the fact that alcohol treated fish is safer. Now, some of those are flavor, like aquavit and sake have their own flavor. They bring some flavor to the party. We could potentially do this with something like gin that has quite a bit of flavor. I'm just occasionally giving my congee over here a stir to ensure that things aren't sticking and the edges aren't getting crusty. So that's what these guys are going to be. The first four here are just going to be our shirzake. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but the message is going to get across. I just need something to pack them with. Shiozake. There's no R in it. That's why I'm mispronouncing it. I'm pulling up a recipe just to double check. Marinate with the alcohol, rest for 10 minutes. So this guy has to rest now for a bit. Blah, 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 Okay. So that's resting. We move back over to our big boy. Now I could, if I was going to make gravlax, whack this in half and use them as a sandwich. But I kind of want to try this curing salt thing that I just came up with myself. So let's read the directions on the curing salt. Curing salt wants me to cook the meat when I'm done, which is fine. Because, again, modern day curing is often just for flavor, not for preservation like it was in the past. And they don't add nearly as much. So let's take a about that much off. And then this final piece, I'm going to go with the right there. So if I want this final piece to be gravlax, then I want, because you want to slice it off this way. So I want the pieces to be longer rather than wider. And then these guys are going to end up together like that with filling, or with seasoning. Because the issue with gravlax is it only keeps like a week. It's not a really, really, really secure cure. It's not the way we do it in modern days. It's not a long-term solution. You'd have to really salt the heck out of it to make it a long-term thing. This guy is going to be my own pure experiment, and I don't have any aquavit, but I'll tell you what I'm going to treat this one with, because I think this will be a good flavor. And I'm actually going to do it undiluted for this one, because I want some more of the flavor. And, oh, this is actually more alcoholic than the vodka. Don't worry, we're not drinking any of these alcohols. Nobody drinks alcohol. That would be foolish. I mention this because YouTube has alcohol rules. Twitch doesn't. Give my congee a quick stir. Make sure nothing's sticking together. I kind of want to use that same tray. That guy. Those are going to have to get pressed together. Okay, so for my own experiment, again, you're not going to be able to see the results of any of these today, except our fridge marinade. But for my own experiment, we're going to go with and we're not measuring this, but 1 part powdered sugar, oh, and this stuff is old, to 1 part curing salt, maybe 1.5 parts curing salt. Curing salt is a very, very fine powder itself. What? What? Sugar is frequently included in meat cures because it is very hygroscopic, and so it can be used as a preservative and desiccant just the same way that salt can. And it has a flavor that helps balance out excessive salt. I'm using specifically the powdered sugar because I knew that the curing salt was a very, very fine powder as well. And I wanted these things to be similar consistencies. We can also add flavors to that if we want, and I'm going to add some smoked paprika. It does have some sugar in it. That is true fact. But reading the ingredients, sugar is the second ingredient, but it is listed on the nutrition label as 0 total carbohydrates. So there is so little sugar in it that they are able to round it down on the ingredient label. I wanted quite a bit more sugar in it. It is overwhelmingly salt. Some garlic powder. So yes, you're correct. I did mention that. I did point that out. But I wanted a lot more sugar than that. why important to read. This is why it's important to read labels on things and understand labels on things. So garlic, black pepper, smoked paprika, powdered sugar, and curing salt. And tiny whisk, indeed. I feel like I don't want to put this in the bag, though, because it should get some air so that it can dry out. Because that's part of the goal here, is you want to get the water out of the fish. This is my experiment. I'm not using any alcohol on my experiment. And yes, I'm going pretty hard on it. I want to see how this stuff will behave. This is an unknown, and there's no recipe. If it fails, I've only lost that much fish compared to the whole thing. The other parts are going for. You can see it dissolving as it sits there. And we need it on all sides, so including the skin. Don't neglect the skin side when curing. I can hear my congee has thickened quite a bit since I last looked at it. The sound of the bubbling has changed. Probably should do this farther away from that piece of fish so that I don't cross-contaminate. Let's see, it's already soaked in and or fallen off on the top side. So we will put more there. And there's a pile around there. This is going to end up being very salty. I'm probably going to have to simmer it something to reduce the salt when we get that far. But this is a tester test. How do I want to hold it in the fridge while it's curing? That's the question. That's the question. I think our congee needs more water and more time. It's here. I'll pop over here real quick. We're at this consistency. It's around the consistency of an oatmeal. And I think I want it a little bit more broken down. So we're going to add another half cup of water. So I started with 8-1, and now I'm probably shooting more towards 9-1. Again, I've seen everywhere from 7 to 20 parts. Tell you what, I'm gonna stick with my original idea, chuck that in a plastic bag. With some of our cure. This will end up not drying out, but it'll end up like forming a brine as the water is pulled out of the fish. So when I check on this, my expectation is that there will be like a soupy liquid forming in this bag. But I'm going to take as much of the air out as I can. Air is the enemy of preservation. Okay, that one is set and ready to go. Wash the brine off my hands. It'll preserve your hands too. It'll really fine-grained stuff. You probably should wear plastic gloves or some kind of protection because it will desiccate your skin just like it's going to the thing you're preserving. And I guess the plan with that one is to play around and see what happens. And if it spoils, I've only lost a little slice. Oop, I'm over here. You didn't miss much. I put the fish in a bag. Give that congee a stir. I'm actually going to move it to the back burner. Let's get rid of the powdered sugar. Powdered sugar is, of course, a very good desiccant. Sugar, as I mentioned, is hygroscopic. Powdered sugar has just a crazy amount of surface area, so it draws liquids out super fast. Doesn't draw any more liquid out than granulated sugar. It just draws it out a lot faster. Let's give the shiozake a flip. Make sure we're getting both sides in our alcohol mixture, although it's been more than 10 minutes, so that's probably plenty of time. This is going to be a little bit of an odd one because now I need to prep it for pressing. Before I prep it for pressing, I'm going to get it off of there. And we're going to clean off this excess stuff. Come back with the Ghost of Salmon's Past. You can see the outlines here of that time that I doused some salmon in paprika. The paprika left some pretty noticeable stains on my board. Okay. Get out enough plastic wrap to completely enclose your fish sandwich. And for this, we're using standard grainy sea salt and standard grainy sugar and some dill and some dill. One of those was dill seed, one of those was dill leaves. Okay, I'm going to start by salting the skin sides so that there's salt on the skin sides before I get any farther in. Don't neglect the skin side when you're making a cure. I don't think the sugar is as important on the skin side, and we're going to add quite a bit to the other side. So, got a little bowl. Let's move our things out of the way. So, and this is supposed to be just a sprinkling, but and I don't have aquavit. I'm going to substitute gin. I almost want to put it in a little dish and like dab it on because I just need a smidgen. How's our congee looking? It's trying to stick to the bottom of the pot, which means it's exceptionally starchy, and I'm not ready for it. So, another half cup of water, and the temperature comes down, and we get the bottom scraped up. If the bottom starts to stick, the bottom will start to burn, and then we will have crunchy bits in our congee, which we don't want. It's supposed to be creamy. Okay. Okay, back to over here. And I'm going to use my basting brush for this. Oh, how did that happen? Okay. Using my basting brush for this, we're going to add just to the surface some gin. It does what I said before. It's 40% alcohol, so it will sterilize the surface. It will draw out some of the fishy components and then evaporate them. But in this case, it also has flavor. And some of that flavor is going to evaporate, but some of it's going to be left behind. That is not ready to use, though, so I'm going to set it aside. And we will pull out this one. These guys have been sitting, I flipped them a couple times, they've been sitting in their little bath of low-proof dilute vodka. And now they need salting and wrapping. And according to this, they should be wrapped in paper toweling. But right, lined with paper towels. Every 12 hours, replace paper towels and flip. So I do have another tray the same size, so that's the one I'm going to be using here. Um, start by cleaning the. I didn't dry off the cutting board before I moved it back over here. Okay. These guys need to be surface dried as well. They're quite wet on the surface, and that is just going to dissolve the salt that we add right away instead of the salt penetrating in. So before anything else, we need to dry these guys off. And then, yeah, this version is not pressed. So there's little variations. There's nice little variations between these various regional preserved salmons. Leave that there for the moment. Bring our dry tray in. Lined with paper towel. And this does not have any sugar in it. This is just salt. I don't want them touching each other. Here, I want them to be salted on the side that's down as well as the side that's up. I have not measured the salt. The guideline that they all seem to go by is you want 5% of the mass of the fish as salt. And that the more traditional methods, which were developed for literally preserving the catch as when it was caught for long-term use were more in the line of 8% salt. Again, this version of preserved fish compared to the European ones is meant to be cooked. It's preserved and then cooked. Okay, salt. My hand is damp. So you need quite a bit of salt. This is less salt than other recipes I've used, but it's quite a lot of salt. Not gonna lie. None of these methods are low sodium. And I don't think any of these work with any kind of salt alternatives. But that's the directions on this one. Salted, toweled, or treated with alcohol, bed of towels, salt, flip and change the towels every 12 hours. In a couple of days, grill it, and then it's ready for storage. We return to gravlax. This one I do want to measure out a little bit more. Oh, and we need to grind up some dill. Dill seed for this one. I don't have any fresh dill. We might want more. I don't have any fresh dill weed, and it's the middle of winter. So I am making do with dried dill weed and dill seed that I harvested myself. Well, I didn't harvest it myself. I bought a dill from the farmer's market, and it was seed. It was almost gone to seed, and it went to seed and dried out after I had it. So I saved all the seeds. I'm hoping that in the spring some of the seeds will be viable, and I can attempt to plant my own dill from it just out in the yard. Then I can have dill whenever I want. But we'll see. Obviously, it's been winter since I got it, and I can't exactly test it out. Okay. Dill. Some black pepper. Some sugar. And by some, I mean quite a bit. And some salt. And again, by some, I mean quite a bit. Now I put the dill under the salt instead of over the top. So that may be a mistake in the long run. We will have to find out together. But one of the keys here, and I kind of made this weird, is that these guys get sandwiched together with the flavors in the middle. And we want to bind it up quite firmly. In a little parcel. Oh, and the container I want that in. I'm not going to put that in exactly, it's a fish sandwich. Fish on both sides, dill in the middle. Just to make sure we don't leak everywhere, I'm going to put this in a plastic bag. As well, since the cling wrap is not exactly secure. But then it needs to be, oh, thank you for the moisten. This has been a very dry show, after all. Moist. So this one, in addition to what I just did to it, needs pressure on the top. And I think what I'm going to do there is I'm just going to use a cast iron. Where did I put my cast irons? There they are. My cast iron cookware, sadly, does not have a really good place to live. I should get some. I should drill some hooks into my wall there, and I could hang them above the sink. But this little baby cast iron pan should. Maybe it's not enough. I was going to say it should be shallow enough that I can put it this way and apply some pressure, but I'm not sure that's going to work. I'm not sure that's going to work. The other ones are much too large. They're heavier, but they're too large. Yeah, I need a brick, just like a culinary brick. Trouble there is the only bricks I have on hand are cinder blocks, and they're frozen to the ground. Canned goods are good, except that they're all round. What do I have that's heavy and isn't just going to fall off of this thing? I thought that little cast iron pan was going to work. Oop, I just touched the mic. I hope when I touch the mic it doesn't make sound. Well, I wanted to do the cast iron upside down so that it wouldn't like rock. And I thought that little one was going to be shallow enough to pull that off with. but it wasn't. Oh no, I've been distracted and my congee is sticking. Okay, well, we're adding another half cup of water to the congee because I'm still distracted over here, and I'm afraid I'm gonna have to get a scraper to get that off the bottom now. Um, um, okay, here's what I'm gonna use. This, it's already in my fridge. It's square. It can just sit there like that and not fall off. And it's pretty full right now because it's a new one. So it's got some weight to it. We don't need a ton of weight. You just need to apply sort of a gentle pressure to encourage the water to come out of the fish. Let's get back over to the stove because now we have to actually deal with cooking some things. Get out a pan. Get some oil in that pan. Get it warming up. My congee started to stick. Not burning, but it's definitely sticking. So I'm gonna have to switch to this guy who has a straight scraping edge. To get it off the bottom. This is why it's good to have a variety of different cooking tools in the kitchen. They serve different purposes. I think as long as we get to this, if it sticks, as long as we get to it before it starts to burn, which we have done, it will come back to being porridgey. Yeah, okay. We've unstuck the bottom. We should test for consistency as well. As you can see, the grains of rice have just broken down. Ooh. I'm actually going to turn that completely off. I don't think the rice needs to go anymore. And I think that it's a nice sort of porridgey consistency. This pan is for our topping, which if you'll recall, we started right at the beginning. It's the first part of the salmon. Let's see. These pieces of salmon are pretty small, pretty thin. So they should cook quickly, and we're laying them flat on their sides, so they also should cook pretty evenly. I'm not going to rinse our marinade. I'm just going to kind of lift them out and drip away. All right, I'm tidying up as our oil is heating to give me less to do in a few minutes when things are more hectic. Get rid of this tray. Get out a bowl. Ooh, clean off the counter again. Okay. Looks like our oil is just about hot. It's starting to run like water in the pan. So let's get that fish in there. Like I said, I'm not going to rinse the marinade off of these. We're just going to lift them out. Kind of let it drip away. Because marinade was kind of diluted anyways, so I don't think that'll be an issue. I'm hoping that these experiments work out and I can employ this in my own future. I'll let you know. Yeah, I feel like we're going to probably come back on Monday. As I've mentioned previously, I'm trying to sprinkle in additional shows because we're really close to a milestone on the channel, and I'd like to get there. So I think we'll come back on Monday because that's 48 hours to check on these cured options. And then, yes indeed, we have a Valentine's Day special. Where's my mouse? There it is. We have a Valentine's Day special coming up. Oh, and there's an ad right now for those of you who are seeing ads. So that was probably poor timing of putting the fish on the stove. That smells good. Here's the heart. I have a bit of a story about it too. I should probably save it. So it's not super big. We're going to make a whole heart-themed meal around it, though. Hearts of palm, artichoke hearts, this heart, and I think I want to add some heart-shaped beets. A little bit of a story around that there heart, though, which I can tell on Valentine's Day. Our salmon. Let's give it a flip. See how it's doing. It's a lamb's heart. Which is a new one to me. I mean, I suppose they have a heart, but never occurred to me to eat one. I'm having a hard time flipping the salmons as they... I just got that dirty for nothing because it can't be used for this. Um, but yes, we are right now coming up to the end of all things. I was correct. I actually probably could have gone with the quarter cup and really knocked this down. This recipe made quite a lot of congee, um, as the starch is all dissolved. But I'm happy with it. Fill up that bowl. Okay. We're gonna decorate this thing. Here's my congee. We're going to decorate the surface with a drizzle of sesame oil, a dotting of hot oil, my salmon is definitely cooked. Nope, that one has indeed broken slightly. And there it is. This stuff. Just a little dollop. This is Laugan Ma Spicy Chili Crisp. It is not as spicy as the name suggests. It's deeply savory. It's made of crushed up crispy chili chips, garlic, and soybeans. You know what that needs? Something green. You know what's green? A scallion. You know what I've got? A scallion. It's a tiny bit dried out. If your scallion is tiny bit dried out, I find that it tends to try to crush instead of slicing. And if you use, first of all, use a very sharp knife, but go very slow instead of trying to speed through it, you'll reduce the crushing. Oh, it also tries to do that thing where they accordion together instead of nicely separating. That's also a problem with having a knife that's either a knife that's not sharp enough or a scallion that is a little bit dried out. The more dried out parts just don't want to slice. Get rid of those. Okay. That and tiny bit of sesame seed. Ta-da. Let me put my black sheet back in here to get the color corrected. Ta-da. Marinated salmon congee, which is overflowing my edge of my bowl just a little bit. I need to get some pictures of this before we go any further and before it squeezes itself out of its bowl because I filled it up right to the rim. So I'm hoping, I did, of course, lick off the spoon when I was serving it, so I have previewed the flavor of the congee itself a little bit. That was pretty easy. I wonder if I could do it in the rice cooker if I just add a ton of extra water. Okay. Bringing it back, bringing it back, bringing it back. Okay. A spoon. I don't have the little ceramic spoon that is the classic. So we're just using a regular steel spoon. But yeah, for starters, I'm going to taste the congee. There's a dribble of it left in the pot that didn't quite fit in the pan. We're going to taste it completely plain and tell you about it. I'm going to not scoop up a chunk of the ginger. It's got this lovely silky texture to it. The texture is, if you're familiar with risotto, it's the texture of the risotto without the rice grains. It's just this sort of smooth, silky. It's just a bunch of dissolved starch. Really, it's a bunch of dissolved rice starch in water, but it gives you this lovely, smooth texture. The flavor is a little bit of that sort of ginger sharpness mixed in with the dashi. It's going to taste like whatever broth you use as the simmering agent. I kept adding more water to this. I would not have added more broth if I just had a big pot of broth and it was needed more. I wouldn't add more broth. I would have added more water regardless because I don't want to add more of this flavor. We've got a good level there. So I would say use a slightly weak flavored broth because it's going to concentrate. And you're going to want to cook this for a long time. It's going to soak up all the flavor. But let's try the main event. Comes apart nicely. Even the skin broke pretty nicely. Mmm. A nice crisp on the edge of that salmon. Mm. Good, complex, savory, sweet flavor. But it has a distinct afterburn spice to it from that salsa macha estilo diablo. We're gonna play with that stuff for a while. It is it's a good hot sauce that's not in that sort of Chinese hot sauce flavor profile, um, which is nice. And yeah, it does look great in this bowl. People always say they love this bowl. Um, oop, that one kind of mushed up. Mm. But I'll tell you what, Laogan Ma, this stuff. Laogan Ma is just is a brand, and they got different kinds of stuff. These things are great. Sponsor me, Laogan Ma. I will sing your praises. These things are amazing. You can only find a few of their products in these parts. I usually get them at the. We have a Vietnamese grocery store. I think we have a more just like general Asian-y grocery store as well. You can get these there. Um, I don't hardly see them at regular grocery stores, but these things are amazing. They're not just chili. It's not just spicy. It's got this deep, rich, savory flavor from the roasted garlic and the fermented soybeans, and they put all sorts of. Apparently, one of them is made with beef. It's got like beef, like ground up beef in it. The label says processed in a facility that also processes, and then there's this big long list of things. Um, but yeah, good flavor, excellent. Just as like a dollop on some rice. You could just that could be a meal. Bowl of rice, dollop of that stuff. Bowl of congee, dollop of that stuff. Uh, this is great. Half of our project today was, of course, the preserved salmons, which we won't get to taste test now for some days. But this is good stuff. Mm. Savory porridge, really smooth, sticks to your mouth, sticks to your throat, but in a good way. Like this nice warming coating. This is comfort food. This is definitely a comfort food. I can see why this is a popular breakfast item. I would make this again for sure. And you can top it with whatever. I've seen it topped with bacon, eggs, um, fried tofu, plain with just a little bit of some flavoring sauce on it. All sorts of options. I wonder if this stuff comes as like an instant version. The way we have instant oatmeal, instant congee, just probably. Um, well, we're coming up to noon, and all of my projects are either done or have to wait a couple of days. So I guess we are going to wrap us up. I don't have a follow up. We finished our Lego, and I don't have another new one yet, as of yet. Let's see who's on around noonish. Oh, all different people. All people we don't normally go and see. Let's go see Shelly. I think I've rated Shelly before, but not often. Um, yeah. Let's rate Shelly today. Because it's themed. Because I just had fish, and Shelly is playing Subnautica. Um, anyways, I expect to be back on Monday to check on the cured fish, and that might not take the whole time. So stay tuned for something else to fill space. We'll figure that out when we get that far. And of course, next Tuesday is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. If you want to spend time with your Valentine, please go do that. More important than anything is your own personal happiness for Valentine's Day. Your and the I'm stumbling over words. Happy Valentine's Day. If you want to spend time with your Valentines, do that. But I'll be here. So if you've got nobody to spend time with on Valentine's Day, come hang out with me. We're going to be making a crazy heart-themed dinner for Valentine's Day. Um, that was a stumbling, rambling pitch, but I think I got the message across. Here comes the countdown, so see you next time.